Hi, everyone. Happy New Year to all. I hope that you are well and are having a wonderful holiday season filled with a lot of love and joy as you are completing the end of 2024 and starting to prepare for the new energetic cycle of 2025. As we complete this cycle, this calendar cycle, another year under our belts, and we begin to really turn a new leaf and have a fresh start in front of us as we enter into this new year. This is not only the time to do a little reflection of what 2024 has brought to the surface for you individually and collectively, but also what we have in store for 2025. And I think it's a really important time, even though maybe it's a little cheesy at times, to really stop and think about and reflect upon all the things that have transpired over this past year. But I do think it's important to recognize ourselves in this process and know that every single day that you are here, you are making huge strides within your life. And we don't always do a very good job with ourselves and stopping and recognizing ourselves for all of the massive growth and the big things that happened in your life that were pivot points, that were expansion opportunities, that were growth opportunities for you. But as we are finalizing the cycle, I really would encourage you to sit with yourself a little bit and just get a pen and paper out and try and recall month by month. It's very difficult unless you have photos or you've got something very prominent, maybe even a social media account where you've documented your year. But just go back and try and remember month by month what has happened over the course of this year. And really, what were those big growth opportunities that you encountered this year, and how that is helping to build another layer of the structure, the house, the foundation for you that's going to carry you into this new energy as we are moving into a very significant energetic year for all of us that we are embarking upon. So don't forget to account for your wins, because they are so important for you to realize that this is why you're here. You're here for these growth opportunities, and you're here in Earth School for a reason. And so don't forget to acknowledge that in yourself, for yourself, because it's an extremely important component of the growth that you're here to do. So 2024, as we've discussed many times on the podcast, and I've talked about it all year long, this was a very significant year astrologically. In the numerology, this was the 8 year. And 8 was a very karmic year. There's so many people that I know that have been really dealing with a lot of heavy karma this past year. It's been a big year of cleaning up that karma, of releasing it, of letting things go in big ways. The 8 has really invited us all to look at the imbalances within our lives, especially the power imbalances. The 8 is such a powerful number. It can relate to infinite possibilities, but it also can be about power struggles as well. And we've, of course, seen that on a global scale. It's been interesting to watch the unfolding that's been happening across the globe, because there has been a lot of conflict. There has been a lot of power. People trying to take power, grab land. All of those things have been happening, which is a very 8 type energy. But it's also been really assisting us in stepping into our own sovereignty and to tap into those higher states of consciousness in order for us to do a lot of our own personal shifting, because we always have to start within in order for those changes to then get reflected in the outer worlds. And this was a big year of stepping further into our sovereignty, stepping into our own power, tapping into our higher selves, tapping into those streams of consciousness that are helping us to see things from different perspectives and helping us to bring new concepts into our reality. And so, again, there's been so much externally that has been happening with this 8 energy, whether it's war, whether it's political fighting, whether it's financial and social imbalances. That piece has really come up to the surface, and it's prepping us for the 2025 year. It's prepping us for the big shifts and changes that we are going to start to see implemented in 2025 and 2026. But again, on a personal level, this has been a year of a lot of, again, deep karmic lessons, a lot of in-your-face type energy that has shown us where we need to make changes within our lives. Again, spiritual awakening, reevaluation of our personal value system, and a lot of deeper acknowledgement and reflection of what it is that we personally need to do in order to shift. I think the biggest thing that we've had happen this year is that we've been in this dance with Pluto going between Capricorn and Aquarius for some time. Finally, on November the 19th, Pluto finally moved into Aquarius, and it is going to be there now for the next 20 years. And anytime a planet is changing signs and it's changing also elements, going from an Earth energy in Capricorn, very grounded, very stable, very steady, to a new energy of air, which is very quickly moving energy. It is very much about awakening and shock and new ideas and communications coming to the surface. Anytime that happens, it's going to impact us on a global scale at a very big level. And it's been very interesting to see what has happened in a very short amount of time with Pluto moving into Aquarius. And obviously, it's just moved in, so it's been at the 0 degree mark, and that 0 degree mark is initiating us. It is bringing us into an initiation phase of the energy and helping us to get acquainted with what this particular energy is going to bring and the lessons that we have to learn. It's definitely about this freshness, this transformative energy. And, as a reminder, Pluto is about the unearthing process. It is about the deep transformation. It is about death and rebirth. It is about going into the crevices of what is hidden and bringing it to the surface. And when we try to ignore the Plutonian energy, what we're doing is we're just starting to create havoc within our own systems. And that havoc begins to rot, it begins to break down, and it becomes very stinky, and it makes us very sick. And when we ignore those things, it's going to come to the surface at one time or another, and we're going to have to address it. And so it's better to dive into it and embrace it and flow with it versus trying to resist it, because it will come knocking at the door over and over again if we try and ignore it. And obviously with anything that's unknown, we tend to fear it, we tend to avoid it, we tend to want to move away from it. But in this situation, we really need to lean into it, let go, and embrace this energy. And it's huge. The last time Pluto was in Aquarius was in the late 1700s. And during that period of time, humanity had great transformational growth that had happened within the structures of systems, into innovation that happened, into looking at where there were imbalances of power and trying to create a new system of how we're going to operate as a humanity. And during that period, there were really two big, well, I guess there would be three really big themes that came out of that. Two are kind of similar. So there was the French Revolution that took place during that time, and that's when the monarchy of France ended up being toppled, and the establishment of a constitution And also, the separation of church and state began to happen during that period of time for France. It's interesting that France is now at a moment where their political government is going through a reckoning right now. And there's been a no confidence vote, and the government is essentially not really working right now. And so it's interesting that it is at an inflection point, again, as it was in the late 1700s when the French Revolution took place. So it's going to be quite interesting to sit back and watch what happens with France this time around. The second big thing was that the United States began its separation from a monarchy, the British monarchy at that time, and established its own country and its own constitution and its own value system and all of those things. Again, we are at an inflection point where we are coming around and we're doing a review process of how that system was established. And is it a system that was established to work for all, or was it a system that was established to work for the elite? And this is, again, another big point in our history, in the United States history, that we are going to be watching as Pluto continues to move through Aquarius for the next 20 years. The other big area of focus was that this was the emergence of the Industrial Revolution. And this is where we began to innovate things and to build these things and to defy a lot of what humans could do in the past. And now where we're at is we are in this huge technological expansion with AI, and we have these supercomputers and all kinds of things. But it's also moving us into a new level of how we connect beyond just our own human form, and how we are connecting with things that are perhaps out in the cosmos and the universe that we haven't explored yet. And I think those three things, those themes, are definitely going to be carried through the cycle and be elevated as our access to technology, our access to expansion of consciousness, of connectedness to life beyond this human understanding is continuing to evolve and move at a very fast pace. We just have all kinds of very fun and interesting things afoot as we continue down this path and as we move into 2025 for sure. What's been really fascinating to see is since November 19th, and this transit has changed into Aquarius, Pluto's moved into Aquarius, there have been so many things that have been taking place in the global consciousness at a global scale that's been so fascinating to watch these things unfold and very quickly. The French government is one. It has been toppled with a no confidence vote. There's disarray in that particular realm. Again, hearkening back to the French Revolution, it should be interesting to watch. Google just revealed a supercomputer that is capable of performing mathematical calculations in 5 minutes that supercomputers in the past could not complete in 10 septillion years before. There's all of the discussion about the quantum and quantum physics and time and space and all of these consciousness shifts that have been happening in the collective, which is very interesting. We had a South Korean president impeached after a failed coup attempt to impose martial law in his country. We had the German chancellor lose a no confidence vote, and Germany's also in disarray right now with their systems. We had that Russian general killed by Ukrainian forces and taken out. The Syrian regime has been toppled. And now we have an explosion of drones and UAP sightings all over the world, and especially a large concentration in the eastern part of the United States, which is starting to bring more and more conversation about unidentified flying objects, unidentified beings coming into our consciousness at a greater rate, which to me is signaling that on a global scale, it's not just starting, it's starting to expand us at a greater level. It's not just limited to those who have the abilities to tap into those types of energies. It is expanding beyond that. The big question is, what is actual truth and what is illusion? And that is the balancing act that I think we all have to really play into as far as our discernment, our personal discernment about the information that's coming forward as we move forward, because there is going to be a lot of information coming at us. And there's a lot of things being unveiled and truths being revealed. But for us individually, we have to use a lot of discernment about what are we going to buy into, what are we going to listen to, and what is likely the truth versus what is smoke and mirrors for other types of agendas or other types of endeavors that are being done in other ways. So this is big stuff. And this is really important to understand because this is the first big shift and one of many of the outer planets that are changing signs in 2025. And so we're going to receive a lot more of global collective transformational shifts as we have more of these outer planets changing signs. And the outer planets, they move slow. They stay in signs for longer periods of time. And when we have a sign shift into another element, another type of energy, another blueprint, we are radically changing as a global humanity when these things occur, because it is a deepening for all of us and a massive shift for all of us when these things happen. And we are going to feel it at a much deeper level, more so than we ever have before. So just something to keep in mind as you may already be feeling these rumblings, these shifts happening, and you're starting to see these things actually manifesting in the physical world. You're going to understand that there is a lot more of these type of things happening, and that the most important thing as we move into 2025 is to make sure that you are in a place of groundedness, of stability, of having an ability to tune out the energies that are going on in the outside world and to tune into yourself so that you can listen to yourself for the truth and for the understanding of what you personally need, because it's going to get noisier out there. And we definitely are going to see a lot more need for trying to control and to hold on to things and to create more fear among the collective so that there's disruption, chaos, and separation. So lots of things going on. So let's talk about 2025 and the energies of what this year is going to bring. So 2024 was all about this 8 number. It was all about that 8 energy, those power struggles, that taking your sovereignty back, the ability to expand beyond. This year, 2025, as we enter this, is the 9 year. So in numerology, there's other numbers besides just 1 to 9, but the cycles of what we focus on are between numbers 1 and 9. And the 9 year is the final number. And this is really about the completion of the cycles. So we have a rebirth in year 1, and then we go through all of these different steps of our transformational process. And when we hit the 9 year, we are in reflection mode and we are in endings mode. So this year is all about endings. It is all about retreating back. It is all about leaning into the re. And when I titled this episode, I titled it 2025, the year of the re. The re is about everything that you can imagine about a reword, rebalance, rework, re-engineer, realign, redo. It is all about the whatever that word is for you. But it's a looking again at everything going on in your life and identifying what are the things that are working and what are the things that are not working for you. And in many ways this year, the 8 has been a tearing down of a lot of the foundational components around you. Maybe relationships have gone away. Maybe there's been job loss. There's just been reshuffling of a lot of different things happening in your life. The 9 is about stripping everything back to the bare bones so that you can start to rebuild the foundation from scratch. So this year, the energy of this year in tarot is the Hermit. The Hermit energy is all about the retreat. It is all about the inward focus. It is all about the reworking, the reviewing, the rebalancing, all of those rewords that we talked about. It's also where we go to hide within the cosmic egg. We go into the void and we sit by ourselves within the void. We get really, really quiet in a 9 year. And it is an opportunity for us to get so quiet that we are able to finally listen to our own voice. We are able to look at our own inner compass, and we are able to cultivate our own light. And it's a deepening of the trust of ourselves. It is going so deep within ourselves, the deepest level, so that we know ourselves at the deepest level and that we are able to prepare for the rebirth that happens when we reemerge in year 1. So if we zoom out from the individual self and we zoom out to the collective and understand that this is the energy that we are seeing at the collective level, we are already been seeing the crumbling of these systems happening. We're already seeing things completely fall apart. And that has to happen. And there's no stopping that from happening because that's already in motion. That's already part of the divine plan. Those structures have had to fall and those cracks have had to be exposed for us to see it. And now what we're going to be able to do is to clean the slate so that we can begin to emerge and build things new. Remember, the Aquarian energy, when we talk about Pluto and Aquarius, the Aquarian energy and the Aquarian era that we are now in as a collective, we've moved out of the Piscean era, which is this top-down structure. We're moving into the self-sovereignty, into this Aquarian era. This Aquarian era, Aquarius is about how do we build community that works for everybody? How do we collectively work together in order to find the solutions? How do we innovate and how do we grow and evolve as a humanity in a way that works for everybody? It helps to bring us together. It helps to unite us. It also is ruled by Uranus, which means it has complete disruptive energy. It has unexpected shock that comes into the collective. And this harkens back to very much what we have experienced, if any of you lived through the late 60s and the civil rights movements that were going on in the 60s, at least in the United States. In the 60s, we had a lot of disruptive energy. Lots of protests were going on. Lots of violence was going on during that period. That is something that we're going to again see in this particular year. Why? Because change does not happen unless we get shocked. Because as humans, we do not change unless we're forced to change. And we do not look at things in a different way unless there's a consciousness shift. And we have to sometimes have these events come into our awareness that helps to shift the consciousness in a different way for us to be able to find solutions that work for everybody. And so this is the energy that we're going into. So for you personally, this is the year to really tune into yourself. This is the year to set up a space for yourself that is very much a place of retreat, of stillness, of safety, of solitude, of reprieve, that you have this ability to come inward and to be able to truly shut out the outside noise and to come into a place of true stability. Stability kept coming up for this year, that we have to have the stability, the stable foundation in place, and we to be able to rebuild it. So we have to have the stability first. We also have to have the stillness, because within the stillness, we need to be able to listen to ourselves and we need to be able to hear ourselves. So stillness and stability are very, very important things. I know for me personally, I have been looking at how do I simplify everything in my life? How do I create a space of simplicity? How do I pare back everything as much as I possibly can to be able to create that simplicity in my life that then in turn creates the stillness, that then in turn creates the stability, that then in turn creates the peace that we need in our lives to be able to really come back home to ourselves. So I think we're at a pivotal point in the collective consciousness, which is we really each have an individual choice to make at this point. And what timeline am I going to be a part of? Am I going to continue with the collective consciousness of chaos and fear and all this stuff with the political stuff that's going on and all the stuff that gets wrapped up in people's drama, right? Are we going to focus ourselves there? And it's not about not being conscious of what's going on, but are you getting yourself wrapped up in the collective thought forms around the things that are happening? Are you jumping onto that? And are you creating momentum for things that are not of the highest value for everybody? Or are you on the timeline for self-sovereignty, for peace, for love, for a greater awareness, a greater consciousness? And that's really an individual choice that we all are being asked to make. And then we're going to continue to be asked to make as we move through this massive change, massive change that's upon us. I'm sure you've been hearing every TikTok and Instagram astrologer and person out there talking about, and the legit astrologers too, talking about the fact that 2025 is truly an unprecedented year because of the astrological transits that are happening. And I think it's true that we have never experienced anything like this in our lifetimes. It is hard to track a time in history since astrology has been a part of this, where we have seen this sort of massive transformational time in our history, in our lifetimes. And so we are on the precipice of something very exciting and very new. For those of you who are on the path of talking about New Earth and all of the fun things that many of us feel that we have been incarnated in at this time to assist with, this year definitely feels as though we are on the verge of that New Earth energy becoming a reality, coming into the reality of this human experience. So I think those are very exciting times and potentially very transformational. So there's a bit of excitement that's also bubbling up for a lot of us, I know, at this time as well. And, you know, I think too that we are on this precipice of having these miracles come in, these consciousness expansion opportunities that we just don't even understand. And as I look around at people that I know, I'm seeing such huge changes in people the awareness of patterns of behavior, the awareness of the trauma, the awareness of just understanding that we're just a speck in this bigger eco sphere of what all of this is, right? That we are true energy beings that are having this human experience. When I look around and I see that people are becoming much more conscious of this, they're maybe not quite sure what's going on, but they're starting to tune in and listen to different perspectives and gather information about things that are not often talked about in the mainstream. Definitely in circles like mine, where we're very much about the expansiveness of consciousness. But to hear that just from everyday people in my life that normally would never even think about this, or they would say, "Oh, that's rubbish. What are you talking about? You're crazy," whatever. Starting to see that emerge in people is really exciting, because it shows that there is definitely assistance coming in from the higher realms, that we do have these type of events that are helping to shift consciousness. I know I was completely blown away, and I am not an expert on any of this, but I was watching what was going on in Syria, and they were viewing the supposed leader of the group that came in and took over and toppled the regime there. And they were asking him about his background being part of ISIS and all of these things. And this just absolutely blew my mind, because this person represents New Earth leadership. He said, "Yes, I was part of that. And I believe as humans that we have these experiences because they are there to help us grow as individuals and help to lead us on the path that we are meant to be on." And my hope for Syria is that it's free, and that we are a nation now of love and peace and tolerance and acceptance and collaboration and all of the things that I would consider to be New Earth concepts. And seeing potential New Earth leaders emerge at the global level is an extremely exciting thing to see, because we are seeing big shifts and big changes happening in a direction that is much more inclusive, love-filled, heart-centered, all of those things. And again, I'm not an expert on that particular area of the world, and I do not have any sort of background or anything. It's just from one interview that I saw. But I was very hope-filled in hearing that type of leadership coming out, whether this person was part of a terrorist organization, considered a terrorist organization or not. Hearing that they're somebody who wants peace and love and equality for all, that's a pretty big shift. And it's definitely a departure from the other leadership that we hear going on right now. So New Earth leaders are definitely a part of the 2025 energy, and it's purging out, again, those old structures, those old belief systems, those old leaders that are no longer aligning in the direction that we're heading. And so it's a snowball effect when it starts. And I think we're only going to see more momentum behind things like that. So in this episode, I'm only going to focus on kind of the big key astrological events for 2025. I will have more information about the January forecast coming out on social media, and I may do a follow-up podcast regarding that. But I think these are the really big things to know of what is happening and when things are starting to really shift. We start the year off kind of with a big bang There's a lot of conflict energy happening at the beginning of the year. And the really big shift that's happening in January is the lunar nodes are changing signs. So we have had the North Node in Aries and the South Node in Libra for the past almost 18 months. We're wrapping up that cycle now. Libra was in the South Node, so we have been very focused on releasing, on a personal level, the over accommodation, the imbalances within relationships and within ourselves, the trying to keep the peace at all costs, the overdoing. Libra is always going to keep harmony and peace and balance and things, but there are times where we have to forgo that in order to really step into our own personal sovereignty and take our power back. And I think as a nation in the United States, we have really been seeing this on a global scale too. But you're starting to see that kind of shift happen and bringing that personal power back and that sovereignty back, which is what Aries in the North Node has been asking us to do. It's been asking us to have the bravery and the fortitude, and it's providing us the energy in order for us to really take back our power and step into our own sovereignty and to stop over accommodating and feeling guilty about saying no to things and putting up those boundaries that we need to keep the peace for ourselves and to keep ourselves feeling good and being healthy, versus just accommodating others for the sake of accommodation. That's been a lot of my work this year. This is why I've been very much in a hermit mode. It's been my hermit year. I'm also a 2/4 in human design, which means I lean into the hermit mode a lot. So there's been a lot of retreating for me this past year, and I'm sure I'm going to continue to go in and out of that as we are still in a 9-year for the collective. But yes, this Aries and Libra component has been extremely interesting because Aries in the North Node has allowed us individually to start to wake up, to take risks that we would never take before, to really take action on things, to make things change for the better for ourselves and for the collective. And it's been a big shift for this year. That is good stuff because it's creating that foundational component for us in order to make sure that we are truly in a place and we are ready to move to this next phase. So the lunar nodes on January 11th are going to change from Aries and Libra to Pisces and Virgo. So Pisces is going to be in the North Node. Virgo is in the South Node. So Virgo is the energy that we're letting go of, we're releasing. And Pisces is the energy that we're moving into. Now, this is a very interesting dynamic. Two of the most intuitive signs in the entire zodiac are Virgo and Pisces. So this is an extremely intuitive access point that we're going to be playing with these energies. Virgo is very grounded. Virgo is very much about the body. It's about the functioning of things. And of course, Pisces is the merging of the self with the whole. So it's less separation, meaning we are coming into more of a convergence, a merging of the self with the whole, with the collective. It is definitely about the higher mind, the higher consciousness. It's letting go of the need to perfect or control, which Virgo represents. Virgo represents that very detail-oriented need for precision, need for having a plan in place, need for control. And I see this more as a release mechanism, that we're releasing, trusting, surrendering, and flowing with what the universe is bringing to us, much more than trying to control it. Because when we try and control situations, they usually don't go the way that we want them to go. They usually go the opposite because there's lessons in that. When we surrender and trust and flow, that is when the energy can come in and allow us to move and evolve and change. There can be some shadow pieces that we're going to be working with this Piscean energy in the North Node. Again, this is the karmic closet. It represents the 12th house. So it's things that are hidden, it's hidden enemies. It is also karma. It is past life components. It is a lot wrapped in. It's higher consciousness. It can be very much about connecting with different energies that are beyond our human understanding. So again, expansiveness, but also the shadowy side can come in and ask us to really work on those unconscious, subconscious belief patterns that we have in place, and really tackle those as we move into that component. We're not going to have Saturn there for much longer in Pisces. We're also not going to have Neptune in Pisces much longer. They're getting ready to change signs. They will retrograde back into Pisces. So as the North Node, the lunar node, is activated, we will have Saturn come in, helping us to bring in some more discipline into this type of practices and this focus. We will also have Neptune amplifying our connections to the higher mind and higher consciousness as well. So we will have this a bit of a retrograding pattern coming in and out, a review. We've been in this big process with Neptune and Saturn and Pisces now for some time. Those retrogrades will give us an opportunity to go back and review and make sure we've done the work, and we have the time to look at this, especially as it's so illuminated in the lunar North Node. Okay, so lots and lots of things happening with this lunar change. So that's going to be the first big global collective shift that we're going to feel for the year. Then in March, we've got kind of a lull. After that, February's fairly quiet. The rest of January's fairly quiet. February's fairly quiet. And then March is where we're going to have some big shifts happening again. So we're going to see some amplification of things going on. The first thing is that we're going to have a retrograde, Venus retrograde in March 1st, from March 1st to April 12th. So Venus has a pretty long retrograde cycle. Had a pretty long retrograde cycle in 2023. And this was a time where we had a lot of reshuffling of our personal relationships happening. Again, it was tied to looking at how we love ourselves, how we give and receive love with other people. So there was a big shift that happened in 2023 with the Venus retrograde. Venus is a time for us to really reevaluate those themes. And again, the relationship not only to ourselves, but also to the divine, also to other people. The retrograde is going to start in Aries, and then it's going to retrograde back into Pisces. So again, it's going to be very focused on these unconscious belief patterns, karmic relationships, higher mind things, and it's going to come back into Aries, which is about the I, right? Our relationship to ourself and what is it that we need and want. So this retrograde will be an important one. We have quite a few retrogrades again this year. I'm not going to get into that, but that's a big one that I wanted to touch upon because it had such significance in 2023 and it's kind of coming back around again this year. So we've got some big stuff happening, and obviously we also have eclipse seasons with the North and South Node as well. So these Pisces, Aries energies are very strong this year across many different layers of these signs changing. The next thing that I want to talk about is Neptune changing signs. So again, Neptune's been in Pisces, and then it's going to move into Aries this year. So we're going from the water element. Neptune's very comfortable in Pisces because it's its modern day ruler. And it's going into a fire sign, not so comfortable for Neptune. This is going to take place beginning March 30th and go all the way to October 22nd, and it's going to retrograde back into Pisces until January 26, 2026, and will be here until March 23rd, 2039, so a very long period. So Neptune is the sign of the spiritual plane. It's what is hidden. It is what is unseen. It's very much home in Pisces, as I said. And now we're going to be moving into a more aggressive and faster moving energy. Fire can spread very quickly. And so we have to be really careful with Neptune, because Neptune can create illusion, disillusions. There can be a lot of things that are hidden. Things may not be super clear, as Neptune makes its way through things, and you're adding that to a very aggressive energy, which could create some conflict going on as well. So we've got to be very conscious about this type of energy, because literally it can add fuel to the fire. And that can be good if we're looking at it as a way to motivate ourselves to move things forward for ourselves. But it can also be detrimental if it's in the hands of the wrong person, meaning it could lead to additional conflict and additional misinformation going out into the collective. So we just need to understand that this could potentially there can be hidden agendas, and there can be almost like a hall of mirrors effect that can happen with Neptune's energy. And we need to be aware of that before we react to things. So it's about stepping back, taking our time, sitting with it, doing our hermiting process, or do our reflection process before we take action on things. Just pause. That's the big theme. Pause. Okay, so the next big piece that's happening, the next big change is going to be with Saturn. So Saturn is the great teacher, and wherever it shows up in our chart is where we have to really focus and work hard. Now, Saturn has been in Pisces, helping us to develop more of discipline, more connectedness, more about doing the inner work, having the discipline to do those things, and helping us to create and establish a practice that helps us to do that higher level of work. So it is going to move into Aries on May 24th and will stay until September 1st. And then it's going to retrograde back into Pisces until February 13th, 2026. And it's going to stay there until April 12th of 2028. So within Aries, Saturn's going to bring much more self-discipline to the eye, as Aries is the ruler of the eye, the self, the body, our outlook on life, etc. So expect there to be much more focus on that area of life where Aries resides in your chart. You'll need to look at your natal chart and figure out which house Aries is sitting in. And that's going to be the area of life where you're going to have a lot more discipline and more focus about doing the real work, where Aries shows up in your chart. The next sign that's changing, or the next planet that's changing signs, is Jupiter. And this is going to move from Gemini into Cancer from June 9th, 2025 until June 29th, 2026. So Jupiter is about expansion. It's about looking at things from a higher perspective. It's about bringing new opportunities to the forefront. It's been really interesting in Gemini because there's been so much chatter and activity and online discourse, and anything related to communications has been expanded, right? Obviously, for those of us in the US, we've been in a political cycle, so this thing has just blown up and expanded everything. And if you think about just the rise of more conversations happening, more digital platforms emerging as well. So as it moves into Cancer, it's going to, think about Cancer is ruled by the moon. So this is about our emotional selves, our emotional body. And anywhere Jupiter is in the chart is expanding. Think of it just ballooning things out. So again, this is going to bring emotions up to the surface. This is going to expand those things out. Cancer also rules our home life, our family. So again, you need to look at where Cancer resides in your personal chart, because it's going to be very different for each one of us, just depending on what other planets you may have in that house, aspects that are happening in that house. But definitely look at it. It's going to have a bigger theme tied around the emotional landscape, though. And then finally, the big piece of 2025, there's so much going on, but the other planet that's changing signs is Uranus is going to be entering Gemini on July 7th. It's moving from Taurus into Gemini. So again, another earth to air. We have a lot of water to fire transitions, and we have a lot of earth to air transitions that are happening. The only one that's a little different is Jupiter going from Gemini to Cancer. So this is going to be interesting. Uranus in Gemini is going to be much more comfortable than it was in Taurus. Taurus, it was all about the physical system, like the physical plane. Uranus is the great disruptor. So we had a lot of disruption on the physical plane. This is moving into more of our conversations, our ability to get quick downloads, our ability to have these epiphanies come to light. It's also, though, going to be shocking truths that come out, because Uranus brings, again, these shocks, just kind of fast things that fly out of the blue that you had no clue are coming in. So this may also lead to more expansion of how we connect in consciously. Our skills around tuning into different frequencies, our skills related to communicating through maybe telepathic means, innovation, expansion of consciousness, expansion and connection with other types of light beings. Those type of advancements, those type of epiphanies, those type of unexpected things coming into the collective consciousness, I think, are going to be extremely fast moving, and it's going to happen real quick. So Uranus changes signs about every 7 years. So we can definitely see that we could have a lot of instability if we allow that to happen. But I think if we all stay focused on the higher mind and the opportunities for massive expansion, I think we're going to be in much better shape as we move through these next few years, versus trying to focus on, again, amplifying the negative energies. So one thing to keep in mind with all of this is that every time we have a thought, every time we make an action on something, it is energetically based. And so wherever we focus our energy and our attention is where the energy is going to flow. And when we hop on board with other collective thought forms or other energies, that can gain momentum. It's a snowball effect, right? Or it can gain momentum, and it can push us in a direction that's either for our highest good, or it can push us in a direction that maybe is not for our highest good. And so as much as we each can stay out of the negative, as much as we each can look to the positive, look to creating spaces for ourselves where we have that ability to tune in and get quiet, and also look at ways in which we can amplify those energies of love and peace and harmony out into the world and self-sovereignty, the faster and the more positive our world's going to be, and our reality is going to be. So lots of big changes happening, lots of exciting changes happening. I'm so excited about this new year, and I hope you are as well. And I'm wishing you nothing but all the blessings in the world as we start this new cycle and go into a whole new world for us all. So take care.